Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Facebook at IBC stream. We're interviewing a series of partners and ecosystem developers that work specifically with Facebook video, whether that's production, measurement, or the like. And one of my favorite people is who I get to interview. So I'm talking today to Nick Cicero from Conviva. So welcome.
Thank you, Katie. Thanks for having me.
Nick and I go way back, before what each of us is doing now. So why don't you take us through how you ended up where you are right now? I know that your company was acquired and that was the start. So why don't you talk about what made you start with the video analytics space?
Sure. I've worked in the media industry for a lot of years and in the social media space, and worked at a few other analytics companies in the past that were kind of doing social insights 1.0, I guess you would say, a lot of social listening. And what I started to see with Snapchat and with Instagram and other platforms is that video started to become more prevalent in social media than ever before. So companies weren't just creating posts and links and status updates, they were now creating long-form original content just made for Facebook. So when I started to see that, I started to realize that there were no analytics that were really helping people understand the performance of those videos at a more, I would say, more apples to apples level of what people might be used to with streaming video or web video, for example.
Right, or even broadcast.
Yeah, exactly. So what we were able to do is basically launch a platform that was measuring all of the content that was published across every social media channel for publishers. So for companies like Viacom, every single Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube account, they centralize that inside of Conviva Social Insights to measure the performance globally of all of the incremental audience and all the different places that people are consuming their video now that isn't on television.
Right, and so that gave, let's just say Viacom, a way to top-down kind of look at everything going on in their house video-wise?
Yeah, it gives you that holistic view of what your audience is watching, where are they watching it, what are the different types of content that are creating, what is overperforming in terms of a video, in terms of the average watch time, for example. So this gives them the ability to kind of see that global view of what are the different platforms that people are consuming content on. And then in the Facebook ecosystem specifically, you have companies that have lots of different Facebook accounts, right? Different Facebook pages that they will be streaming content to all the time.
Right.
And so for companies that have a large number of pages across Facebook or Instagram, for example, we also give them really awesome tools to automatically tag and categorize their content based on the series. They might make a Facebook Watch series and distribute that not just on their page, but on an influencer's page, on different partners or celebrities. And we actually can centralize all of the streaming data around that, so they can now figure out where are the people that are watching when we simulcast this particular event to multiple pages, for example.
What do you see, I know this is probably all over the place, but specific to your media clients, what do you see them wanting to measure? It doesn't have to be Facebook exclusive. Just with digital video, what's success look like? And it can be more than one thing, obviously.
Yeah, and this is great because since the acquisition of Del Mondo to Conviva, we actually now have the ability to see all of the digital video. So not only are we measuring social, but for a lot of these large media and entertainment companies, we're measuring their OTT apps, we're measuring the different websites that they're streaming all this video to. And so we like to think about it in terms of playback and retention and engagement. So I think everybody looks at the core of how many plays do I get as kind of a volume directional metric, but digging a lot deeper, they're looking at engagement and retention. So what's the average watch time of videos across a number of different content themes or series? What is the total minutes consumed across different channels and platforms? Who are the people and what are they watching and how long are they watching for? So if I'm able to dig in, let's say I am somebody like Miami Dolphins. I'm a sports team and I want to understand what are the female fans of the Dolphins watching the most inside of my platform? What are the different video series that they tend to tune into more than other types of people? And so that's kind of big now, moving away from just video views and likes and engagements to actually going a lot deeper and segmenting your audience based on who's interested in what types of content.
Segmenting is a good way of putting it.
Exactly.
And I forgot to mention, if you guys have any questions, you can go to the Facebook at IBC Facebook page, and you'll see an Ask a Question right there. So feel free. So why don't we talk about, let's do a little bit of an example or case study to make this real. So maybe a major media partner that's used Conviva and how they're using it to measure Facebook video or performance of anything on Facebook.
Yeah, so let's use like Fox Sports, I think is a great example. So Fox Sports, obviously a major broadcaster, and what they've been able to do is use the platform in a number of different ways. The first thing that they've been able to do is create episodic content on Facebook and automatically categorize the content that they're making on those videos. So they are publishing lots of different types of video series to the same sets of Facebook pages. And in one particular case, they have a college football series called Breaking the Huddle with Joel Klatt.
Sure.
And so they broadcast and go live every Wednesday throughout the college football season to Facebook. And they've had Dr. Pepper sponsor that. And now what they're able to do is they went back and used the Conviva platform to take a look at all of the live videos that they made in the past 2 years. What was the average watch time, the engagement, what pieces of content overperformed in terms of those key areas, so that they could go back and actually create an inventory package and a rate card to go back and bring that out to their partner to say, well, hey, we can reach these types of people when we create content across just this set of Facebook videos.
Really to get in line with how they're selling digital video or linear video even in other places.
So,
what advice would you give to maybe a Facebook page that hasn't put a lot of video up in the past that wants to start doing that? What kind of process from start to end do you think makes it successful? I know you're in the measurement business, so how do you get set up for success with that?
Well, I think that the first thing that you have to kind of do is understand what your KPIs are going to be, because you can just start creating things, but if you don't know the goal that you're going after, you're not going to actually know if something was a success or not. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It might be, I have a goal to create 10 videos this quarter. Maybe I didn't make any videos this quarter. That's a fair KPI. That's a great place to start. And then kind of evolve and expand as you see different types of growth. So today, a lot of our customers will look at growing minutes consumed or average watch time, and they won't just look at it at a single channel. They'll actually think about it for a particular type of series.
Sure.
So if the college football team wants to really improve the average watch time this year, they might create longer videos or try different tactics like creating live videos and bringing in fans by using polling, and they might use different types of elements and experiment with those to try to get them to stay on the page longer.
Do you see, you're looking at all of the video output from a page. What kind of mix of live to VOD video? I know there's not one solution that fits everyone, but what are you seeing with different pages, or maybe even sports versus news, et cetera?
Sure. Well, I think that sports and news are actually they're very similar, even though they are kind of, because they are so tied into live and into the moment, right? So every week is a new storyline or a new event that they have. Obviously, the news storylines are happening every single day. I think that, I look to a customer like ABC News, for example, who uses Conviva to measure all of their social video, but they're very invested in live on Facebook, right? And they've taken this always-on approach where they understand that their consumer, they don't really care if they're getting the news on Facebook, on their own app, on their website. They just need to consume that content. And so as we see more and more young people or people cutting the cord in general, we're seeing them not stop watching content, not stop consuming TV type or broadcast type content, but just watching it in a little bit of a different form in other places, right? So ABC will look to distribute to Facebook Live and be able to understand the audience that's there the same way that they're looking at their own properties too.
I know there's a bunch of kind of other side ways people have used the Conviva product to, say, pinpoint, if you had an hour-long video, kind of pinpoint maybe the most interactive parts and clip. Do you want to talk about that at all? I don't know if you have examples.
Sure. So we actually developed a new feature about a year and a half ago in collaboration with you guys that is called like our live segmenting tool. And so what that allows us to do is basically automatically detect or manually allow people to import the different segments when they're putting broadcast graphics on the screen, when they're doing polls like the live poll, when the responses are happening. So they can actually not only see the real-time live viewers and engagements and comments as the broadcast is happening and after the fact, but now they're also able to see these segments of interaction that happened. So what are the elements of the broadcast, and how does putting a poll on impact the people that are staying on 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes after? Or what is the right number of interactive elements that I put into a broadcast that keeps my concurrent viewers continuously growing throughout the broadcast instead of dropping off?
So you can look at time code segments then and kind of layer those with what
layer
you
those
were
with
doing.
Concurrent viewer and engagement data, and then we're able to track like live engagement. So we'll for Major League Baseball is a great example. So last season, when Major League Baseball was streaming their games to Facebook Live, they used the real-time live analytics from Conviva and the segmenting tool to be able to take every time code from every one of the different graphic elements or interviews that they were doing throughout those different games, and then they could easily see which of those different elements actually drove the highest engagement over the whole video. And we built these insights in such a way that you could actually then see the growth stream after stream. So they could test something in a few different streams, see what the engagement rate was for that particular piece of broadcast, interactive element, the interview they put into the third inning, and then they could go and test and say, well, maybe let's move that interview from the third inning to the fourth inning and see how that might impact the people that are watching, or how does that improve our retention or engagement rates.
So you're seeing kind of the end result of a lot of testing that people do with video in the social space. Do you have any best practices when it comes to social video or engagement with your audience that you see based on time slicing, that kind of video?
Yeah, I think that social video thrives in the extremes. So whether it's extremely short, so content like on Instagram stories or Instagram video, right? That's 60 seconds or less, I believe. Yep. Thinking of platforms like even on Twitter, where people are consuming a little bit more in bite-sized nuggets, I would say, than a platform like Facebook Watch or YouTube, where people are consuming a lot more long-form content, for example. So I would say that you can test to figure out which lengths and types of content are the optimal for your audience, but typically what we've seen are really short videos, so maybe 30 to 60 seconds or less, and then long videos, so videos that are 3, 10, 30, or even the live videos that are an hour or two long.
Right.
So really thriving in those extremes when it comes to social video.
And knowing what your topic is and what it's best suited for, right?
Right. Yeah. And you had mentioned
sports
teams and news teams, for example. I like to use the Dolphins always as a great example,
me too.
Because I think that they've created this whole strategy around video franchises where they have one Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube page, but they have 10 to 12 different video series that they create every single day, and they have series that are daily news magazine shows like the Dolphins Daily that are going to give you your updates every day that are shorter. They have live press conferences and live shows with their coaches that go on longer, that are more interactive with more Q&As. And then they have video franchises where, like, you'd sit down and pull up a episode on Netflix. You could go to the Dolphins Daily page on Facebook and you could pull up and see the latest episode of the Dolphins Daily and start watching that, just like you'd tune in to Netflix or Hulu and watch.
So I came from the side where I was working on all that social video content. I was at ESPN, as you know, and the biggest thing for me was how much work what you just said is. So that's a lot of video content. Then you've got social posting and then grabbing your measurements. How do you see it working with a lot of different media companies? How are you seeing people handle production, taking video from multiple places, and then who's gathering those insights? Who's actually working in your tool?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I always like to ask. It's
it's a nice softball for me, because really, that is one of the big problems that we have to solve, right? Is companies have so much content that they have to produce, shoot, and then bring it into social, cut it up, promote it in social, and then they do that on lots of different platforms. So we like to say that 80% of the time, typically in an analyst's week, it's probably spent collecting this data. Okay. They have to pull it in from different platforms. They have to try to manually tag it and collate it and categorize it, and then they can maybe by Thursday afternoon start pulling together a report Friday morning.
Apples to apples,
right?
And then you've got data that
so
makes
what
sense.
we've been able to do is for a lot of these companies, they're saving hours and hours and hours every single week instead of spending 80% of their time pulling this data. We're pulling the data, we're categorizing it, they've set up these different rules and automatic queries, and the process is set up for them, so it's pulling in all of this data, that rich, robust data that is giving them really rich demographic information, the stuff that can
setting it up ahead of time and investing, and then it's
right, and now they can go in and instead of pulling that data, they're like, this is what's performing well, this is what's not working. We grew this much, we dropped this much, and then they can dig right in immediately to start pulling insights out to try to change that content performance.
Sure.
Yeah.
And also to justify what you're doing. I was always justifying what I was doing on social platforms.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah.
Okay, question from Josh. What's the most important data for a business owner or broadcaster to pay attention to?
What is the important data for a business owner or broadcaster to pay attention to?
If you had to pick one video data point. I know.
I guess I'm going to go with.
Let's go broadcaster.
I'm going to go. Well, if you're thinking it's a broadcaster and you're thinking about live streaming, we look at average minute audience. So it's more of a traditional TV metric, but when
what does that mean exactly for people that
So it basically means the average number of viewers who were watching concurrently over every minute of the broadcast.
Okay.
So while we're able to track across like the social platforms, we're able to do second by second concurrent viewership with Conviva.
Yeah.
To make it more of an apples to apples comparison, we've created a digital version of the AMA, right, for streaming video. Now we're tracking average minute audience for streaming digital video,
and
like
that is
a
across
Nielsen
platforms. So if you've got video on YouTube and you've got video on Facebook and maybe something on Twitch, you can level. Is that sort of
Yeah, and you're basically looking at concurrent viewers and when they're watching what types of content. Mm-hmm. So that's one way. And then I think really it's all about the minutes consumed and the average watch time, and then adding those to the context of your strategy, right? Because I can look at my page and I can see, oh, I'm getting a high average watch time or a low average watch time, but you don't have anything relative to compare it towards.
Sure.
So when you start to segment your content into either episodic content, like we talked about with the Dolphins, or if you're somebody that is just promoting, a single set of media properties, it's breaking that up into content themes. So how do you start to segment the different types of content that you publish every single day so that you can understand which works best, what doesn't work, and how can I impact that to have a full, complete content strategy?
Got it. So, and then we touched on this a little bit before, but I think it's interesting. You can get all of these products that pull data, so we can have Conviva, but if you, how do you make that actionable? Do you have a partner that does that really well, or a client?
Yeah, I would say that, when you think about companies like, let's say Cirque du Soleil, I think is a great example that we've been working with just started working with them last year. They're somebody that sits kind of in the hybrid space. They're an entertainment business, they're a live events business, but then they also have this really budding IP empire, right? They have so much really unique stories and so many different stories. They did a show on Facebook Watch, I think, that followed the dancers and acrobats of Cirque du Soleil, which was so cool, right? Being able to see what it's like to just have a job playing at the circus all day long. So when I see a team like that, what they're able to do is they have I would say a small power team that is going in and they have automated reports in our platform that are going to cover their core KPIs. So is our audience growing? How much is it growing by? Are our views, engagements, impressions? Is our reach dropping or not? The core metrics that I would say most executives, it's a baseline. Yeah. And then being able to automate that gives them the baseline every single week, so they can, instead of jumping in to pull that data and give that next report, now they're saying, oh man, our video views on Facebook have dropped 25% in the past month. Why is that happening? What do we do? Let's just dig right into that, and it saves a lot of time from having to go and analyze this data, and then being able to, the way that we've laid out the platform makes it easy to kind of see top performing or underperforming pieces of content.
It actionable.
Exactly. And so they go in every week, and they're constantly in the platform looking at how a single video might be performing, or all of the videos on the whole, and then they'll ferry those insights to the content teams in a lot of instances. So that is one approach, and then we've now started to see our larger enterprise customers actually now empower their creation team, so their editorial team or their social media team or their video team, they're empowering them with access to our platform as well.
To make creative changes as
well. Exactly. So there shouldn't need to be this system where you need to come and ask your analyst says like, hey, I really need to know how my Instagram videos are doing and how can I make them better. Now they might collaborate and talk about that, but they're able to just jump right in and start to figure out insights themselves and actually become more of a data-driven creative.
Everyone can pull what they want.
Yeah.
So my last question, because I think they're telling me to wrap, is you've always kind of been a video futurist. What do you see in the digital video space, or even here at IBC, that's interesting to you about the future and maybe towards like, measurement and that type of thing?
Yeah, well, I think that we're in a really interesting time right now. I've been walking around IBC meeting with lots of different people here, and the one thing that I've been saying, and it seems to be resonating with everybody that I've met with, is we are in the final frontier of media disruption. Television is the last major old school media channel to be disrupted, and we're literally in the last inning of that disruption right now. So this time next year at IBC, it's going to be an entirely different landscape. There are going to be almost every one of the major companies here that's a major broadcaster has their own streaming application that's going to be released in the next 6 months. So the landscape of all of these different places that we're broadcasting video to is going to be totally different. Sure. The measurement landscape now, because we're seeing more and more people consume video delivered through the internet, totally changing. Yes. And so we're actually now in the position where we can truly measure a global view of content consumption when it comes to streaming video, which we're already starting to do today at Conviva with our partners, bringing in like a Turner Sports, right? Bringing in the global view of owned and operated video, application video on third-party platforms, like the MVPDs or the vMVPDs, and then pulling them back in with all of that landscape of social data. Yep. And now I'm making content decisions on holistically based on truly where my audience might be consuming, and I can learn of what they're doing on different platforms to satisfy them. Yeah. Got it.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Nick.
Thank you.
It was great talking to you. And sure. Question?
Yes.
Do we have a mic for a question?
I'm just, so you mentioned the difference, like a same content provider, they broadcast on Facebook, they broadcast on YouTube, and maybe Twitter as well. And how do you see the content provider having the same type of content? For example, MLB, I watch a lot of baseball. I noticed that on Facebook, their condensed game is 5 minutes. On YouTube, it's longer. It's 7 to 10 minutes. So do you see that because the viewers are different or viewers' viewing habits are different, the content provider is using different ways to publish their content?
Yeah, I think that, it's a great question, and I think that you kind of answered your own question in a way, right? That different consumers on these different platforms are going to watch video differently, and they're going to use insights to be able to figure out what is the optimal length for that consumer, right? So I think that we would typically tend to all agree that YouTube is a destination for a lot of long-form video. So it would make sense that a Major League Baseball might make video clips that are a little bit longer on YouTube for such a reason. And so that's what they will use like our platform for. That's the idea is figuring out when I am creating a single event. Same idea, you have Fox Sports with the Women's World Cup that they just did, right? The Women's World Cup, we did the Men's World Cup last summer, or I think last summer or 2 summers ago. Yeah. And taking what you learned about consumer behaviors from one World Cup and tweaking some of your content strategy to the next event. And then they're going to be doing that now, right? We see from our broadcasters for the NFL season a very similar type of experience. The NFL, like the Major League Baseball, they distribute across lots of different services. They're on Twitch, they're on YouTube, they're on Facebook, they're on IGTV, which is another long-form surface. So I think that is one of the future pieces here is more and more personalization of that content tailored to the platform. Right? Because if I'm an NFL fan and I can watch a game on television, or I can watch it on Facebook, or I can watch it on Twitch, it doesn't really matter to me as long as I get to go and see that game. But I am going to pick a platform, right? And so the broadcaster, we want to know those things, and so that's what we're trying to do.
Maybe the community around Twitch,
right? There's a whole nother.
Or maybe Facebook's doing something interactive there, or maybe you just want the game.
Right, you might bring different personalities on. That's one of the things that I think is so cool about getting to work and streaming like full length, licensable content to social, you get to try different types of things. You know, if I have Major League Baseball, right? They've done deals with all of the major platforms, and they get to try different things on each one. I've loved what people have done on Twitter and bringing different Twitter influencers from like the NBA on to have a personal point of view, and you're not just going to the same old broadcast announcers every time.
Or simulcasting.
Just like a straight simulcast, it doesn't really get it done, right? Because the social platforms are more personal just by the sheer nature of that. It's supposed to be a two-way conversation, and that's the cool thing about being able to use social platforms. You don't log in, and this is one thing that I'm curious to see if it will change or not. I don't log in to Hulu and watch live TV and leave comments with my friends. I go to social media to talk about it. So what better place to have a discussion than underneath that piece of content on Twitch or on Twitter or on Facebook, where I can have a unique community of people that I can have that type of a focused discussion, and those conversations will be different for the same piece of content on every platform.
And maybe that community is really just time based on that program, even, right? And not something you participate in longer.
Absolutely.
We could talk about this all day. Any other questions?
That's a great question. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Nick, for your time.
Katie.
And tune in later. We'll have more interviews.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.